Hi, I'm Lars. Welcome to This Old Mine. Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting entry of the This Old Mine video experience. The garbage gods have smiled upon me, and I've run across this old Baker chipper shredder machine. We're going to unload it here and take it up to the workshop and see if we can get it running. Currently, it doesn't turn because inside of the bin is full of garbage. I don't know if there's been rats in here or if it was parked underneath a tree and leaves and branches have fallen in over the years. It's completely seized up, but I think that's because of the branches being stuck inside. We've gotten it up to the mill site or our workshop, and I'm going to unload it here without breaking it myself or the tractor. There we go. I'll push it off to the side and we'll get working on it. First, we need to clean out all the shrubbery that's built up inside, and to do so we have to remove this plate. This gives us access into the chipper bin, or the shredder area, whichever one you want to call it. The finger muncher is what I'll call it. So we'll take off these 3 bolts and see what we've got inside. Now, paying attention to the bolts as I take them out, they're in pretty decent condition. They're not rounded over, and the paint indicates that these bolts have not been removed in the past, so we're the first ones in. And look at all the crap that's in here. I don't know if there's any rats in there that are going to pop out at me, so I'll use a tool just in case. You don't want to get bit by anything. But this is a little bit more extreme than I thought. I'm going to use a chisel and see if we can break out some of this. But I'm afraid we're going to have to remove the intake bin and the next cover plate that covers the spinning finger munching pieces so that we can get this all cleared out. This is why we aren't able to use the pull cord to start it. There's just so much junk in here that's packed in and sat over the years that it's like a rock. So let's get busy and take off the next section. This will be the inlet bin. The inlet bin and the funnel leading into the shredder section. The shredder is where you're supposed to put leaves and small branches. There's another inlet on the other side, which is the chipper, which will chip up large branches. Same thing here with the nuts. They're not rounded over. The paint isn't scratched up, so it hasn't been, this has never been removed before. And of course there's a couple of hidden bolts inside the bin. We need to take those out so we can lift the bin off. There we go. Wow, it's plugged all the way up. Pretty sure something has been making a nest in here. There's little chewed up pieces of plastic and paper in here, so it's a sure sign that something has been living in here. There we go. get it turning a little bit. At least we know the engine isn't seized up. We'll just pick all this crap out of here and get things moving. There, that's much better. Now, one thing you want to make sure to do when you're turning an engine over by hand, especially when it's got blades and chipper teeth and all kinds of finger munchers, is you want to make sure you pull out the spark plug. The last thing you want is for this thing to fire off while you're turning it by hand and remove a finger or an arm or something. But you know, it's really not worth working on a piece of equipment unless there's some ability or fright factor that you might lose a limb or a finger. It just takes all the fun out of it. I'm going to blow all the garbage out from the cooling fins on the head. Get rid of some of the trash that is built up on top and inside and around. Up here in the mountains, when you start an engine, you also don't want to start a fire, so just to err on the side of caution. And looking at the spark plug, it's very ashed over, a lot of black soot on it. It means this engine's been running a bit rich. I'm checking to see if we've got spark. Now, since we weren't getting any spark, we're going to have to pull the front of this engine off. That entails a starter and the fan deflector so that we can get inside and see what the coil looks like. Hopefully the coil's not damaged. There's 3 bolts that hold this cover on. 2 in the lower corners on the starter cover, and 1 on the top of the head. So we pull off this cover to reveal some more junk. Okay. Looks like a mouse was setting up home here. Now we'll inspect the ignition system, the high tension lead, the P lead, which grounds out the system when you shut it off. And we pulled the head here, and lo and behold, it looks as bad as the spark plug did. Got a lot of soot. This engine's been running very rich. We'll see in a little bit exactly what that issue was. The cylinder seems smooth. There's no deep scores in it. Doesn't look like it's had much use as far as any heavy abuse. The valves seem to seat. You'll notice when the valve does open, there's a bit of a shiny spot where the valve is closing against the seat, which is good. We'll clean it up a little bit, turn the valve in the seat. But I think most of this ash will come off with a cleaning solvent. Using a cleaning solvent on the top end is not really a good idea. You can see all the oil and ash wash off, leaving the cylinders bare and probably washing the oil out of the valve stem. So make sure you go back and re-oil that before you put the head back on. Here we're torquing the bolts down to the standard 65 finger-pounds. Now that we've screwed around with the top end, let's see if we get any compression. Well, we get a little bit, probably enough to start it and run it. It should seat and build up compression once it's run for a while. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on with the excessive mixture here. Most likely it's going to be an air filter issue. And oh crap, yeah. This machine has had no maintenance on it whatsoever in its entire life. That filter should have been changed out 6 or 7 times before getting to this point. Well, we've cleaned off the spark plug, reinstalled it, torqued it back to 63 finger-pounds. No, we're going to use a wrench and tighten it back up. No need for torquing stuff because we just tighten it down until it strips, then back it off a quarter of a turn. We don't need to be exact. I'm going to put some of this Go Juice in here. See if we can get it to fire up. That should be enough. And we'll fiddle with the levers on the side, the throttle and the choke and the on-off. Give it a try. Now this is the dangerous part that I always enjoy, watching these things swirl around, threatening to take off fingers and feet. Well, you can't have fun all the time. Well, apparently this thing will run off starter fluid, but the carburetor seems to be a little bit defective. So we're going to remove the carburetor and take a look at it. Of course, being a Briggs & Stratton engine, the carburetor bolts are kind of tough to get into. They're hidden underneath the carburetor, and the top of the carburetor is at an angle such that it's very difficult to get to. Well, the main jet looks clean, so that's probably going to be the problem there, and that's the vacuum actuated fuel pump. Since the carburetor sits on top of the fuel tank, it needs a source of pressure to suck the fuel up and pump it into the carburetor. Here's the diaphragm. The two little flappers on the left are the intake and outlet valves. And then the circular piece in the center is the diaphragm, which actually does the pumping. And it looks kind of worn out. Now this tube here, this goes from the engine block up to the carburetor. It's a vent line, and you can see where the mouse has made lunch of it, and just age and rot have deteriorated it. Those two pieces will be replaced. This is where the vent line comes from. This is also where the valves are, or the valve springs. This vents any of the crankcase gases out and burns them through the carburetor. Rather than trying to rebuild the old carburetor, I opted for a complete new carburetor. But it does come with some ancillary parts, air filter, and some other part. You got gaskets, gonna need those, yeah. And here's the beauty. Brand new shiny pieces. This will make the engine run a lot faster. First of all, what you need to do when you buy a new carburetor is check the linkage. Linkages never seem to be consistent across rebuilds or new carburetors from old carburetors. And we notice here that there is a linkage that needs to be transferred over, and it's the choke linkage. So when you pull the throttle back to the start position, it actually engages the choke as well. Once it starts, you move it to the run position and it disengages the choke. We'll get this other stuff out of the way for now. And break out the surgery kit. We're going to move this linkage over. It's a pretty simple process. The new carburetor does have the boss, or the screw hole, for the original parts to bolt into, which is good. So we'll screw on the new piece and slap this puppy back on. Now, one thing you might notice is missing from this carburetor is a float. The bowl actually for the carburetor is in the top of the tank, and any excess fuel going into the bowl overspills the bowl and goes into the tank, returns back to the tank. So this eliminates the whole float and valve assembly. Kind of an ingenious way of doing things. So we install our new gasket between the tank and the carburetor and bolt it back together. And then we slap it back on the engine. Ta-da, it's all done. Now let's try and start it. Come on, baby, first pull. Yeah. Keep going. Well, now it's running. We're dropping some sticks in it here just to test it out. Since getting this running, we've chipped through quite a bit of shrubbery. Got a nice pile of mulch going. Shrubbery that we've cut up just to stay within the fire zone laws. We have to do a yearly abatement around here to cut back trees and shrubbery and grass. Of course, we don't need to chip the grass. It composts pretty easily. All in all, I'd say this is a good curb find. We got ourselves a chipper, and it runs. Total cost, about $25. Can't beat it. Well, that's about it for today. We'll be coming up with some more videos soon. See you around.